The basement door slammed shut above me, and I heard the lock click into place. My son's footsteps retreated across the kitchen floor, the kitchen in my own house, while I stood at the bottom of the stairs in complete darkness, my birthday cake still sitting untouched on the table upstairs. I pressed my hand against the cold concrete wall to steady myself, and one thought echoed through my mind. How did the two people I'd sacrificed everything for become the ones who would trap me like an animal in my own home? My name is Helen Price, and I turned 70 years old on the day my son locked me in the basement. Up until that moment, I'd convinced myself that I was lucky. Lucky to have family close by, lucky to have my son Richard and his wife Monica living with me, lucky not to be one of those elderly people who dies alone and isn't found for days. Looking back now, I can see how I'd been fooling myself for a very long time. I'd lived in this house for 43 years. My late husband Thomas and I bought it when Richard was just a baby, back when this neighborhood was affordable for a young couple with modest dreams. Thomas worked construction, and I worked part-time as a secretary. We saved every penny. Dreamed of the day the house would be paid off, imagined growing old together in these rooms. But Thomas died of a heart attack 12 years ago, suddenly, at just 62. One day, he was fine, laughing at dinner. The next day, he was gone. Just like that, I became a widow with a paid-off house, a small pension, and a loneliness so deep I sometimes forgot how to breathe. Richard was my only child. He'd always been a sweet boy, maybe a bit too dependent on me, even into adulthood. But I told myself that was normal for an only child who'd lost his father. He'd married Monica 5 years ago, a woman who seemed nice enough at first, polite, pretty, always smiling when I was around. They'd been renting an apartment across town, and Richard worked as a manager at an electronics store. Monica didn't work, said she was focusing on starting a family, though 5 years had passed without any grandchildren appearing. When they started having money troubles 3 years ago, I didn't hesitate to invite them to move in. Just temporarily, Richard had said, hugging me. Just until we save up for a down payment on our own place. You're a lifesaver, Mom. I'd believed him. I'd believed it would be temporary. I'd believed a lot of things that turned out to be lies. At first, it was pleasant having them there. The house felt less empty. There were voices and footsteps, the smell of cooking, signs of life. Monica would sometimes make dinner, and Richard would help me with heavy lifting and household repairs. I felt useful again, needed, part of a family. But gradually, things changed. Monica stopped helping with cooking and cleaning. "I'm not feeling well," became her constant excuse. Richard started working longer hours, or so he said. I found myself doing all the housework, all the cooking, paying for most of the groceries, even though I was living on a fixed income. They took over the master bedroom, my bedroom, the one I'd shared with Thomas. "You don't need all that space, Helen," Monica had said sweetly, "and my back really needs the good mattress." So I'd moved into the smaller guest room, surrounded by boxes of my belongings that no longer had space in what was supposedly my own house. My friends noticed. "Helen, are they taking advantage of you?" my neighbor Dorothy asked one afternoon over tea. "You look exhausted, and you're the one doing everything while they live here for free." "They're family," I'd said, defending them. "Family takes care of each other." But the truth was, I was the only one doing any taking care of. I paid the property taxes, the utilities, bought the food, cleaned the house, did their laundry. They contributed nothing except complaints and demands. And then came my 70th birthday. I've been looking forward to my birthday for weeks. 70 felt significant, like a milestone worth celebrating. I'd mentioned it several times to Richard and Monica, dropping hints that I'd love a small celebration, maybe just dinner together or a cake. The morning of my birthday arrived, and I woke up to an empty house. Richard had left for work early without saying goodbye. Monica was still in bed. She rarely got up before noon. I made myself breakfast alone, trying not to feel disappointed. Around lunchtime, Richard called. "Mom, I need you to do me a favor. Can you go down to the basement and look for that box of old electronics? I think I can sell some of that stuff, and we could really use the money. Today, on my birthday? It'll just take a few minutes, Mom, please. I'm really counting on you. I sighed. This was typical. My needs always came last. All right, I'll look for it. The basement was cold and musty, filled with decades of accumulated belongings. I'd been meaning to organize it for years, but never found the energy. I flicked on the light, a single dim bulb that barely illuminated the cluttered space, and started searching through boxes. I was bent over a stack of old containers when I heard footsteps on the stairs behind me. Richard. I haven't found it yet. But it wasn't Richard, it was Monica, and something about the way she stood at the top of the stairs made my stomach tighten with unease. Monica, do you need something? Actually, Helen, we need to talk. Her voice was different, cold, hard, without the fake sweetness she usually used. Richard and I have been discussing our situation. What situation? This house. We've been living here for 3 years, contributing to its upkeep and maintenance. We think it's time you recognized our investment. Investment? You haven't paid a single bill since you moved in. Monica's smile was cruel. We've been providing you with company, Helen, taking care of you in your old age. That's worth something. Actually, it's worth quite a lot. We think it's worth the house. What are you talking about? We want you to sign the house over to Richard. You're getting older, you could fall, have a stroke, anything. It makes sense to transfer ownership now while you're still capable of signing documents. My heart was pounding. This is my house. Thomas and I bought this house. I'm not signing anything. That's unfortunate. Monica stepped back into the kitchen. Because Richard and I have decided that if you won't cooperate, we'll have to make you understand how serious we are. Monica, what? The door slammed shut. I heard the lock turn. I stood there in shock for several seconds before my brain processed what had just happened. I climbed the stairs and tried the door. Locked. I pounded on it. Monica! Monica, open this door! You can come out when you're ready to be reasonable. Her voice came from the other side. When you're ready to sign the papers, transferring the house to Richard. Think about it, Helen. Think about how much easier your life could be if you just cooperated. Her footsteps retreated, and I was alone in the cold, dim basement of my own home, locked in by my own daughter-in-law on my 70th birthday. The first hour, I was in shock. I kept thinking Richard would come home from work, discover what Monica had done, and let me out immediately. My son wouldn't let this happen. He loved me. He wouldn't allow his wife to lock his elderly mother in a basement. But the hours passed. The single light bulb provided barely enough illumination to see by. There was no bathroom down here, just a utility sink. No food, no water except from the sink. No phone. Mine was upstairs in my purse. No way to call for help. I tried yelling, but our house was set back from the street and the basement was below ground. No one would hear me. Dorothy next door was away visiting her daughter this week. The other neighbors were too far away, and our street was always quiet during the day. By evening, I heard Richard come home. I pounded on the door again. Richard, let me out. Mom. His voice sounded uncertain. Your wife locked me down here. Open this door right now. There was silence. Then I heard Monica's voice, low and insistent, though I couldn't make out the words. And then Richard said, Mom, Monica explained everything. You need to understand, we're doing this for your own good. My own good? You locked me in the basement. Just sign the papers, Mom. Make this easy. The house should go to me anyway eventually. We're just speeding up the process. Once you sign, we'll take good care of you. You can live here as long as you want. We'll make sure you're comfortable. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was my son, my baby boy, the child I'd raised and sacrificed for, and he was calmly telling me that imprisoning me in my own basement was for my own good. Richard, this is illegal. This is elder abuse. If you don't let me out right now, you'll both go to prison. Who's going to report it, Mom? Monica's voice was clearer now, closer to the door. "You're an old woman living alone except for us. If you tried to tell anyone, we just explain that you're getting confused, maybe showing signs of dementia. Who do you think people would believe?" The casual cruelty of her words took my breath away. They'd thought this through. They'd planned it. That night was the longest of my life. I sat on the cold concrete floor, my back against the wall, and tried to keep warm. The basement was unheated, and April nights were still chilly. I had only the light sweater I'd been wearing, and it wasn't nearly enough. I thought about Thomas, about how he'd worked so hard to give us this house, this security. I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made, working extra hours to help pay for Richard's college, giving up my own dreams so he could pursue his. I thought about how I'd welcomed Monica into our family, tried to be a good mother-in-law, never interfering or criticizing, even when I wanted to, and this was how they repaid me. By locking me in a basement like a prisoner, trying to force me to sign away my home, my security, everything Thomas and I had built. But something else was growing inside me alongside the fear and hurt. Anger. Clean, cold anger that burned away the confusion and gave me clarity. They'd made a mistake. They'd underestimated me. They'd assumed that because I was 70 and alone, I was helpless. They'd assumed I'd break easily, sign the papers, give them what they wanted. They were wrong. The second day was harder. I was hungry, thirsty despite drinking from the utility sink, and cold to my bones. My joints ached from sitting on the hard floor. But my mind was working. I knew this basement. I'd been coming down here for 43 years, and I remembered something Monica and Richard didn't know about, something I hadn't thought about in years. There was a small window on the far wall, covered by shelving units. It was tiny, barely big enough for a child to squeeze through, and it opened into the window well at ground level. Thomas had talked about boarding it up years ago, but never got around to it. It took me hours to move the shelving units quietly enough that they wouldn't hear upstairs. I had to rest frequently, my 70-year-old body protesting every movement. But eventually, I cleared the space and found the window. It was painted shut. The latch was rusted. But I had time and motivation. Using an old screwdriver I found in Thomas's ancient toolbox, I worked at the paint, then at the latch. My hands cramped. My shoulders screamed, but I kept working. On the third day, I heard them arguing upstairs. "She should have broken by now," Monica said, her voice sharp with frustration. "What's taking so long?" "Maybe we should just let her out," Richard said. "This feels wrong, Monica. She's my mother. She's standing between us and financial security. That house is worth $500,000. We could sell it, buy something cheaper, have money left over. No more struggling, no more working retail, but only if we own it." "What if she dies down there?" "She won't. Old people are tougher than they look. A few more days and she'll crack. Then she'll sign and all our problems are solved." I listened to my son discuss my imprisonment like it was a business negotiation. That's when whatever remained of my motherly illusions shattered completely. Richard wasn't the victim of Monica's manipulation. He was a willing participant, motivated by greed and entitlement. That night, I finally got the window open. The window well was full of dead leaves and debris, but I could see the night sky above. Freedom was just a few feet away. The problem was getting through the window. It was barely 18 inches wide, and I hadn't been a small woman even in my youth, but I'd lost weight over the past 3 years, stress and malnutrition taking their toll, and desperation is a powerful motivator. I pushed the old screen out of the window well. Then, using a plastic storage bin as a step, I hoisted myself up. My shoulders barely fit through the opening, my hips caught and scraped. But inch by painful inch, I pulled myself through that window like a snake shedding its skin. I emerged into my own backyard at 2 a.m, covered in dirt and leaves, shaking from cold and exhaustion and relief. The house was dark. Richard and Monica were asleep, probably confident that I was still trapped below them, getting weaker and more desperate. They were wrong about that too. I could have run to a neighbor's house right then. Could have called the police, had them arrested immediately. But that cold anger I'd been nurturing for 3 days told me to be smarter. I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd planned. I needed evidence not just of the imprisonment, but of their intentions. I crept around to the front of the house and used my spare key, the one I kept hidden under a false rock in the garden, something Richard had forgotten about. I let myself in silently. The house was quiet. I could hear Richard snoring from the master bedroom. My bedroom. I slipped into the kitchen and found my purse where I'd left it, my phone still inside with 15% battery. Then I saw the papers on the kitchen table. Property transfer documents, already filled out, just waiting for my signature. Next to them was a brochure for an assisted living facility, a nursing home, with notes in Monica's handwriting. Lock-in period 3 years, non-refundable deposit $50,000. My stomach dropped. They weren't planning to let me live in the house after I signed. They were planning to take my money. I had about $60,000 in savings from Thomas's life insurance, lock me in a nursing home, and sell my house out from under me. I photographed everything with Asi Tatwe, my phone, the documents, the brochure, the notes. Then I opened Richard's laptop, which he'd left on the kitchen counter. It wasn't password protected. He'd always been careless about that. What I found in his email made everything so much worse. Messages between Richard and Monica going back 6 months planning this entire scenario, researching property transfer laws, discussing how to handle me if I refused to cooperate, calculating how much money they'd make from selling the house. One email from Monica made my blood run cold. Your mother is too trusting. She'll never see it coming. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. The house will be ours, and she'll be tucked away somewhere she can't cause problems. Richard's response: I feel bad, but you're right. She's old anyway. How much longer does she really have? At least this way she'll have some use to us. I photographed every email, every document, every piece of evidence of their conspiracy. Then I did something they would never have expected from confused, helpless old Helen. I went back outside, climbed back through that basement window, which was even harder going down than coming up, and positioned myself exactly where I'd been before, because I wasn't ready to confront them yet. I had a better plan. The next morning, Richard came to the basement door. "Mom, are you ready to be reasonable?" I made my voice weak, defeated. "I need water, please, and food. I'll sign. Just please let me out." I heard excitement in his voice when he responded. "Really? You'll sign?" "Yes, just please. I can't take this anymore." Okay, good. That's good, Mom. We'll bring you some food and water and the papers. This is the right choice. You'll see. An hour later, they both came down. Richard carrying a sandwich and water, Monica holding the property transfer documents and a pen. I was sitting against the wall looking appropriately disheveled and defeated, which wasn't hard. I actually was exhausted, hungry, and in pain. But I wasn't defeated. Not even close. "Here," Richard said, setting down the food. "Eat first, then we'll handle the paperwork." I ate slowly, drinking the water, watching them. Monica was practically vibrating with excitement. Richard looked uncomfortable but determined, like a man who'd convinced himself that what he was doing was somehow justified. "Ready?" Monica asked, laying the papers on an old workbench. "I need my reading glasses. They're in my purse upstairs." Monica's eyes narrowed. "Richard, go get them." While he was gone, Monica leaned close to me. "You should have just done this 3 days ago, Helen. Could have saved yourself all this trouble, but at least you came to your senses eventually." "Yes," I said quietly. "I definitely came to my senses." Richard returned with my glasses. I put them on and made a show of reading through the documents carefully. "This transfers complete ownership to Richard?" "Yes," Monica said impatiently. "Sign here and here and here." I picked up the pen, held it over the first signature line, and then I looked up at both of them. "No." Monica's face twisted with rage. What did you say? I said no, I'm not signing. Mom, don't do this, Richard said, his voice taking on a threatening edge. You agreed. You said, I lied. I stood up, my body screaming in protest, but my voice steady and strong. I lied the same way you've been lying to me for 3 years. The same way you lied when you locked me in this basement on my birthday and left me here to freeze and starve until I broke. You can't refuse, Monica hissed. We'll just keep you down here until what? Until I die? Because that's what would have happened if I'd signed, isn't it? You were going to put me in that nursing home, the one with the 3-year lock-in period. You were going to take my savings for the deposit and sell my house. I'd never see a penny of it. Richard's face went pale. How do you... I climbed out the window 2 nights ago. I've been free this whole time. I've seen everything. The documents, the nursing home brochure, your emails planning all of this. I photographed it all. Every piece of evidence of your conspiracy to commit elder abuse, unlawful imprisonment, and fraud. The blood drained from Monica's face. You're bluffing. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I'd kept it hidden in my sweater. Am I? The room fell silent except for the hum of the old furnace. Richard and Monica looked at each other, panic replacing their earlier confidence. Mom, listen, Richard started, his voice pleading now. We can work this out. We made a mistake. We weren't thinking clearly, but we're family. You wouldn't actually go to the police, would you? Why wouldn't I? You imprisoned me. You planned to steal everything from me. You said... My voice almost broke, but I forced it steady. You said I was old anyway, that I didn't have much time left, that at least this way I'd have some use to you. Richard's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't know if they were from guilt or fear of consequences. I'm sorry. God, Mom, so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. You were thinking about money. You were thinking that your convenience was more important than my life, my dignity, my rights. You were thinking I was too weak and stupid to fight back. What are you going to do? Monica asked, her voice small now, all her earlier bravado gone. I looked at them both. This son I'd raised, and the woman who'd corrupted whatever decency he once had, and I made a decision. Here's what's going to happen. You're both going to pack your belongings and leave my house today. You have 4 hours. But we have nowhere to go, Richard protested. That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you imprisoned your mother. And if we refuse? Monica asked, trying to sound defiant but failing. Then I walk out of this basement, go straight to the police station with my evidence and press charges. Elder abuse, unlawful imprisonment, attempted fraud. You'll both go to prison. And Richard, you'll lose any chance of ever inheriting anything from me. I paused, letting that sink in. Or you can leave quietly, and I won't press charges. You'll lose the house, but you'll stay out of prison. That's more mercy than you showed me. Richard was crying openly now. Mom, please, I'm your son. I made a terrible mistake, but I'm still your son. You stopped being my son when you locked me in this basement. A son protects his mother. He doesn't imprison her and plot to steal from her. I walked toward the stairs, my body aching with every step. 4 hours. Then I'm calling the police regardless of whether you're still here. I climbed the stairs, unlocked the door from the inside. The key was hanging right there on a hook, so close yet so far while I'd been trapped, and walked into my kitchen, my house, my home. Behind me, I heard Monica hiss something to Richard and his broken response, but I didn't care anymore. I was done caring about them. Over the next 4 hours, I sat in my living room, the room I'd been exiled from for 3 years, and watched them pack. They moved frantically, throwing belongings into boxes and suitcases, occasionally shooting me looks that ranged from pleading to hostile. Monica tried once more to negotiate. Helen, be reasonable. We made a mistake, yes, but kicking us out with nowhere to go? That's cruel. Cruel is what you did to me. This is justice. We could still make this work. Let us stay. We'll pay rent. We'll contribute. Do you think I could ever feel safe in my own home with you here? Do you think I could ever sleep without wondering if you'd try again? No, you're leaving. That's final. Richard approached me as they were finishing. Mom, I know I can never make this right, but I want you to know I do love you. We just got greedy, entitled. Started seeing me as an obstacle instead of a person. I looked at him, this stranger wearing my son's face. I don't know if you ever really loved me, Richard, but I know you love my house, my money, my usefulness. That's not the same thing. Where will we go? I don't know, and I've decided that's not my responsibility anymore. For 3 years, I made your problems my problems. I sacrificed my comfort, my space, my peace of mind, and you repaid me by plotting to take everything from me. You're 42 years old, Richard. Figure it out yourself. By 3 p.m., their car was packed. They stood in the driveway, Monica furious, Richard broken. One more thing, I said from the doorway. If either of you ever contacts me again, I'll release all the evidence to the police. If you come back here, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you tell anyone a different version of why you left, I'll tell them the truth with documentation. Am I clear? They both nodded. I watched them drive away from my house, possibly for the last time, and I felt empty. Not victorious, not satisfied, just hollow. I'd lost my son. Maybe I'd lost him years ago and just hadn't wanted to see it, but now it was official. The final thread connecting us had been cut, not by distance or time, but by his own greed and cruelty. That evening, Dorothy came home from visiting her daughter and knocked on my door. Helen, I've been so worried. I tried calling you several times. Are you all right? You look exhausted. I am exhausted, but I'm okay now, or I will be. Where are Richard and Monica? Their car is gone. They moved out. It was time. Dorothy studied my face. Did something happen? I thought about telling her everything, but what good would it do? It was over. They were gone. I was safe in my own home again. Let's just say I realized I'd been making some mistakes, putting other people's needs ahead of my own, but I've corrected that now. Good for you, Dorothy said firmly. You always were too generous with that boy. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your children is let them stand on their own feet. After she left, I walked through my house slowly, reclaiming each room. I moved my belongings back into the master bedroom, the bed I'd shared with Thomas. I threw away the half-eaten food in the refrigerator that Richard and Monica had left behind. I changed the locks, and I went down to the basement one more time. I stood there in the cold, dim space where I'd been imprisoned on my 70th birthday, and I said out loud, I survived. I'm still here, and this is still my home. Then I went back upstairs, closed the door, and started the process of healing. That was 6 months ago. I'm 70 and a half now, and my life looks nothing like it did before my birthday. Richard tried to contact me once, 3 months after he left, an email that was half apology, half justification, asking if we could work toward reconciliation. I deleted it without responding. Some bridges once burned should stay ashes. I learned through mutual acquaintances that he and Monica are living in a small apartment, both working now, struggling financially. Part of me, the mother part that never fully dies, worries about him. But I don't reach out. I can't. The trust is gone, and without trust, there's no relationship. I've made changes to protect myself. I updated my will, leaving everything to charities that help elderly people experiencing abuse. I've given power of attorney to a lawyer, not family. I've joined a support group for victims of elder abuse and discovered I'm far from alone. Family exploitation is more common than anyone wants to admit. But I've also made changes that have nothing to do with protecting myself and everything to do with reclaiming my life. I've reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the years I was focused on Richard and Monica. I've started taking art classes at the senior center, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I volunteer at a local elementary school helping kids with reading, and their joy and innocence reminds me that not all people are motivated by greed. Dorothy has become more than just a neighbor. She's become family, the kind of family that's chosen rather than blood. We have dinner together twice a week, play cards, talk about everything and nothing. She knows the full story now. I told her a month after Richard left, and she's never once made me feel foolish for trusting him. "You're not stupid for trusting your son," she said when I confided my shame at being so blind. "He's stupid for betraying that trust. There's a difference." Do I miss having family? Sometimes. Late at night, I still think about baby Richard, toddler Richard, little boy Richard, who would crawl into my lap and say, "I love you, Mama." I mourn the son I thought I had, even as I accept that he either never existed or died. Somewhere along the way, replaced by a man I don't know and don't particularly like, but I've learned something important. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. I was lonelier living with Richard and Monica, serving them while being treated as invisible, than I am now living by myself, but surrounded by genuine friends and meaningful activities. I've also learned that kindness and boundaries aren't opposites. I can be a generous person without being a doormat. I can help others without sacrificing myself. I can say no without guilt. Most importantly, I've learned that my worth isn't defined by how much I sacrifice for others. For too many years, I measured my value by how much I gave up, how much I endured, how useful I was to the people around me. But I'm valuable just by existing. I deserve respect, dignity, and safety in my own home, not because I've earned it through service, but because I'm a human being. The basement door has a new lock now, one that can't be opened from the outside. I rarely go down there anymore. Too many bad memories. But sometimes, when I need to remind myself of my own strength, I open that door and look down the stairs into that cold, dim space. And I remember the woman who climbed through an 18-inch window at 70 years old rather than surrender to people who wanted to take everything from her. That woman is me, and she's stronger than anyone, including herself, ever knew. Thank you for listening to this real-life story. If you or someone you know is experiencing elder abuse, please know that you're not alone and it's never too late to get help. You deserve to feel safe in your own home, regardless of your age. If this story touched you, please give it a like and share it with others who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more emotional stories about resilience and finding strength when we need it most. And leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts or your own experiences with setting boundaries with family. Remember, family is important, but so are you. Never let anyone make you feel like your own well-being doesn't matter.